Hello, I'm Hannah Buschbom, co-founder of the W Source. You're listening to the W Wisdom Series. The W Source is an exclusive network of female professionals and service providers who are interested in growing their referral network and their businesses. The Wisdom Series is a forum to hear from the experts within our membership. To learn more about how you can benefit from connecting with professional women across the nation, visit thewsource.com. Hello, and welcome to a law and mediation focused edition of the W Wisdom Series. I'm Hannah Buschbom, co-founder of the W Source. We took a three-part approach to this panel, focusing on subjects we thought our W Source members and their clients would find both timely and helpful. I'd like to take a quick moment first to introduce our fabulous panel of experts, current members of the W Source, and most of them in the law and mediation practice. First, please meet Tina M. Allegues, managing partner of Allegues, Newman, Goodstein, LLP. Tina is in our Ventura, Thousand Oaks chapter, but our office is located in Woodland Hills, California. Tina is an attorney practicing in business and corporate transactions, business and real estate related litigation. Next, we have Eleanor Dorman, attorney and owner of Pathway Law PC. Eleanor is a member of our Seattle chapter, but her office is in Tukwila, Washington. Eleanor's practice focuses on estate planning, probate, elder law, and LGBTQ advocacy. After Eleanor, meet Allison Kierman, managing partner at Kierman Law, PLC, where Allison's firm focuses on estate planning and probate law. She practices in all Arizona, and Allison is a member of our Scottsdale, Arcadia, Arizona chapter. Next up is Nicole C. Oden of Nicole Sherry Oden Law, PC. Nicole is a member of our Westlake Village chapter in California, but her office is in Simi Valley, California. Her expertise is in settlement-minded family law matters. After Nicole, meet Amy M. Rafeka with Atlanta Wills and Trusts Law Group. Amy is a member of our North Atlanta chapter and is licensed in all of Georgia and Florida. Amy provides estate planning for women, and her tagline is, "We help women protect who they love the most." Last but certainly not least is Jocelyn Stewart, partner and attorney with the small business law firm. Jocelyn is a member with Nicole in the Westlake Village chapter, and their office is nearby. Her professional expertise is small business law, both transactional and litigation. Our first topic is on resolving disputes. We asked our panelists of attorneys to share their perspectives on disputes, both with clients and with their families. We'll start with Tina, who will give the next question to her fellow panelist. Tina, you have some interesting ideas on how to resolve disputes with clients. Share with us your thoughts.
Well, I think from the get-go, what I try to do is avoid disputes with my clients. And how I do that is to really establish a relationship with my clients where I get to know them. I have to know their background. I have to know their education. In my case, I have a lot of Spanish-speaking clients because I'm fluent in Spanish. And some of those clients have, multi-million-dollar businesses, but surprisingly, they're not always incredibly sophisticated. Some of them don't have a tremendous amount of education. So with all clients, I think it's important to get to know their background, their education, their ethnicity, because how you communicate with them is critical to avoiding disputes. You have to have frequent communication with them. You have to have clear communication. You have to tell them what the expectations are, whether it's a litigated matter or it's a transactional matter. What are their goals and what can be achieved? And don't give clients false expectations. Be clear. Tell them what the steps are. Explain it in layman's terms, because many people do not understand the legal process. It can be complex. So for me, that is the key. I have to know them off the bat and know how sophisticated they are. If they're very sophisticated in business, if they've dealt with legal matters before, if they've dealt with lawyers before, then maybe my communication style is different. Also, their ethnicity, their educational background may impact the manner in which I communicate. Americans, for example, we tend to be more direct, but in clients that I have from other countries, from South America, I need to establish a relationship. I need to establish a tremendous amount of trust for me to be able to really get to know the nuts and bolts of what's going on in their business, and then be able to lead them down this path in litigation or in a transactional matter smoothly. So that's my approach. And I know, Amy, you had a similar approach when thinking of yourself as a business owner. So please share.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Tina. That's actually really great. And it's a great segue to how I actually view dealing with disputes. And it's a lot about expectations. I always think of when a dispute arises or something's out of alignment. So something's not like syncing together. And it usually boils down to the expectations of where we are supposed to both be in something, whether, it's where we're supposed to be in the process, where we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to be working on, what information is supposed to be shared, who it is. And so it's about who is supposed to do what next. And really, expectations can only really fall into the category of communications. And so it's not a secret in the legal field that the number one reason for bar complaints is lack and failure to communicate, or lack of, or failure to communicate or miscommunicate. And so, and that's probably true for every single state in which we practice. And it was probably one of the first things we learned as an attorney when we started practicing. And so I, as a business owner, have chosen to create really clear expectations and really clear roadmaps for my clients. And I didn't always do this. It was, of course, by a sort of a trial and error when there was a misalignment in communication with my clients or with a fellow professional that I needed to work with for a client. So internally, and we even share externally, we look at actually every single time we onboard a client into our law firm, it's like the game Chutes and Ladders. They start at the very first space on the board and they work their way through the board. And sometimes they can climb up a ladder and move faster through the process because things are moving more swiftly, information's getting shared, calendars are aligning. And sometimes they need to slide back down a slide because we realize something else needs to happen and we need to kind of go back. And so that path internally helps all of my team members and myself keep moving in a forward direction. And it's a really easy way and a clear way for my team internally to share with my clients, this is the next step on the board. This is the next step that's going to happen. And so we have a golden rule that every time we leave a communication with our clients, whether it's an email or a phone call, we say, this is the next step. And so that's become a template in our conversations with our clients. The next step is, or you can expect the next thing to be. And so I think that's a really helpful way to avoid disputes. So I think, Allison, you have something to share on the subject as well. And I think you have like a really great thing to share in terms of difficult clients.
So even thinking about difficult clients gives me anxiety, right? So I don't want to have to deal with them. It makes me so nervous. Over the years, I've just gotten better and better at gatekeeping, right? Trying not to take on those clients from the beginning because it's just not a good fit. My assistant has a good list of screening questions. So if clients or potential clients say things like, I'm shopping around, I've met with a lot of attorneys, I don't like my current attorney, or they're just generally rude or not polite to her, we refer those clients out in the first instance. The money isn't worth it. That said, people always fall through the cracks, and we really try to do our best to help them. Like you said, both Tina and Amy, being communicative is really important. Sometimes it's documenting that communication in an email as opposed to just a phone call. But I really enjoy working with my WSource group because over the years, we've had a lot of commiseration together about these types of clients, but also generally brainstorming when you have a particularly troublesome issue, how to handle it. Jocelyn, I know you have a totally different area of law. So what are your thoughts on resolving disputes when they do arise?
Thank you, Allison. So I am a very settlement-minded attorney, even though I do litigate. On the litigation side, I always encourage my clients to settle disputes because of the expense and the stress of litigation. Often that includes a client paying more or accepting less than they envisioned. But I really try to educate them on the positive aspects of settlement, as well as the negative aspects of litigation. I really try to walk them through what the process will be like if they continue litigating, and let them know how much cost and stress and time away from their business and family that they're looking at, as well as the uncertainty of the results. I think a lot of clients come to me thinking, you know, it's going to be a slam dunk and they just have to pay a certain amount of money and it's going to take a short amount of time and they're going to get the result they want. And some clients, I can educate them very quickly that that's just not how it works. Other clients have to really kind of get into litigation and experience the pain for a little while before they really understand the benefits of settlement. Then on the transactional side, I really try to encourage the inclusion of alternative dispute resolution clauses in almost every contract that I draft or review. In those clauses, I always include a term that requires mediation first. And if the clients aren't able, or excuse me, the parties aren't able to resolve their disputes in mediation, then the next step would be arbitration as opposed to trial. Arbitration tends to be more attractive than trial because it tends to be less expensive, less time consuming. There's less discovery involved, and the discovery process can be a very expensive and stressful part of litigation. Switching from resolving disputes with clients, Eleanor, how do you help clients navigate family member challenges?
Well, it can be very interesting in the realm of both probate and elder law. I'm also not a litigation attorney. I have a mediator personality, although I'm not officially a mediator. I really always prefer to come up with creative win-win solutions to problems. And if parties can come up with their own agreements, sometimes they can have solutions that are not the purely legal solutions. An interesting issue that I need to deal with in the area of elder law is that if a senior comes to me, they are the client, but almost always elder law issues are family affairs. And there's adult children involved, there's caregivers involved in decision making. And the first thing I have to do is to be very clear with everyone about who is the client. That's always the first question in legal ethics class in law school, is who is the client? And to be very clear about that. And to be clear that if the senior is my client, that they have a right to determine who's in the room, who's in the discussion, who they share information and decisions with. And sometimes family members don't understand that, or that they think that their voice is equal to their parents' voice in the representation. And so that's usually an educational process. But sometimes the disputes arise within the family. And again, I am always willing to try and talk to people, family members, so I have to be cognizant of issues of attorney-client privilege. Communication is the most important thing. If something escalates to a litigation situation, then I refer to someone who specializes in that, and that gets into a whole different territory. So Nicole, as a family law attorney, you may deal with some of the same kinds of things. How is your approach different to dealing with disputes within families?
Yeah, so my practice primarily focuses on out-of-court options for families. I don't feel like the courthouse is the best place for families. I mean, on the summons that you're initially served with your divorce paperwork, it literally says you are being sued. And your family is going to be there for the rest of your life. Your divorce attorney is not, especially in cases with minor children. So I focus primarily on mediating disputes, and that's me acting as a mediator, as the neutral facilitator, or collaborative law cases, which is basically a team of professionals working with the parties committed to resolving the divorce outside of the courthouse, or even cooperatively with lawyer to lawyer type negotiations. Because in my view, those types of approaches really do reduce stress for families. It's more affordable. And tying back to something that Jocelyn said, she mentioned the fact that you don't have certainty in a resolution when you go in front of a judge. That judge in that black robe is calling the balls and strikes. And in a mediated or out-of-court approach, you really can be creative in your solutions and finding something that's best for your family, obviously within the confines of public policy and what's legal. But you get to decide what's best for your family with your soon-to-be ex-spouse or your soon-to-be, ex-boyfriend, girlfriend, if it's just a child custody issue. But being able to decide kind of what that path after looks like versus putting it all in the hands of the judge is very empowering for families. So that really is where I focus my practice.
Our second topic is networking with attorneys. The W Source is a unique network for credentialed female professionals. Attorneys play a major role in each of our chapters because their profession is so essential in all businesses. Eleanor, your Seattle chapter launched in a virtual environment at the beginning of COVID-19. Talk to us about attorneys in your chapter. We know you have several. Do you think it's more competition or collaboration? How has your experience been?
In general, I don't see it as competition. I see every attorney as sort of having their own niche, their own style, their own special place within the profession. And I'm thrilled to have people I can network with and refer to and share ideas with. So I personally don't have any issue with other attorneys joining the section. As I say, we serve different parts of the population and different kinds of issues, and I really appreciate the collaboration, both with attorneys and non-attorneys in the section, the chapter. So, Tina, what about your group? Ventura Thousand Oaks launched very recently, and I understand you have some overlap in professions. What's your experience been?
Thank you, Eleanor. Well, actually, yeah, we're a small group, very small yet, growing. I'm not the only attorney currently. There is one other lawyer. My experience in general in this group and in others that I've been a part of is that it actually benefits lawyers to have other lawyers in a professional group such as this one. We love to collaborate. We love to talk to each other about issues that arise. And I find that there's always an opportunity to actually refer to other lawyers. I get a lot of referrals from lawyers that don't do what I do. In fact, I like to meet with other lawyers that do what I do. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of having coffee with Jocelyn Stewart, who's on this panel. And she does a lot of what I do, the transactional end of law. But the fact is that there are types of transactions that I might not have experience in doing, and I want to pass that on to maybe another transactional lawyer that has experience doing that transaction. And sometimes amongst us, for example, I might litigate and another lawyer is only a transactional lawyer. So lawyers tend to be a great source of business for each other because, like Eleanor mentioned, we each have, you know, a niche, a specific area that we have experience in. And so I think it's been great. I love the camaraderie that has been established in our Ventura Thousand Oaks group already. I love the fact that we are women, that there are issues that we love talking about that are really unique to our gender. And I think it's fabulous to be able to speak to experienced women about some of those issues and how they approach them and how they resolve them. So overall, I mean, just being in this group and having other lawyers in the group has been a tremendous asset, and you know, one that doesn't impact us in a negative way at all. Passing on to Allison. What types of law would be helpful in your group? Your group is a bit larger than ours.
I love my group. I know I say this a lot. I'm currently one of 2 attorneys. We also have a divorce attorney, but I'm definitely game to add more attorneys to the group. Like you, Tina, I work a lot with other attorneys. I give referrals. I receive referrals. It's a wonderful relationship. My clients also ask me for attorneys and other referrals often. Last week, I was asked for a nonprofit attorney, as well as an attorney who creates businesses in foreign countries. In particular, we're trying to create an India company. I'm still looking for someone to help if you know someone. But I would love to be able to add a small business attorney to our local group and other types of specialized attorney practices as well. Amy, we keep talking about adding more attorneys to groups, but have you seen problems or challenges kind of with the business-to-business networking?
So there are challenges with B2B networking all the time, or P2P, professional to professional, right? And I think one of the challenges that I have faced, first, I am the only attorney in our group. And so, we're actively looking to expand our group. And specifically, we're actively looking to expand our group with other attorneys. Like many of the ladies mentioned already, the majority of my business, if you start breaking down by referral type, do come from other attorneys. In fact, they come from other estate planning attorneys sometimes. Sometimes, another estate planning attorney say, this person is just not a good fit for me. And I routinely refer to other estate planning attorneys. In fact, I just this morning sent an email to someone because I couldn't create a particular type of accommodation, even though I do the work. My business model doesn't necessarily accommodate something that they need. And so I refer it out. And so I have a lot of really wonderful relationships, even with fellow estate planning attorneys in my community. And for the most part, we P2P or B2B with attorneys who align with us. And I think that's one of the challenges when you go B2B and you're out there looking for other individuals to join a networking group, or such a close-knit group as the W Source has become for what it sounds like all of us, is this wonderful, safe resource of other professional women. And that is, you want to be mindful of who you're introducing into this community and whether they align with you. And I think that's the biggest challenge I've had. I routinely get approached by other types of professionals like financial advisors or financial strategists, real estate agents, tax professionals. And I had a particular challenging experience with one financial advisor, and this particular advisor wanted me to become exclusive. They wanted everything to be that I could refer to them, and they wanted, or allegedly wanted, to refer everything to me only. And they didn't want me really to have any relationships with other advisors in my community. And that didn't align. That didn't align with how I work, with my business model, with my principles for my clients, because not every one of my clients would have been a good fit for this individual. And so, I ended that relationship. It frankly wasn't worth my energy and resources and time any longer to continue that relationship. And so, just in terms of how we expand our W Source communities and how we invite individuals in, those are all things that we keep in mind. And the North Atlanta chapter is specifically keeping in mind, like aligning with who you are and how you run your practices is really important in creating those B2B and P2P relationships. And I know, Jocelyn, you have some experiences in that. And, could you just explain a little bit about how the attorney spot works in your particular W Source community?
Sure, thanks, Amy. So Nicole Oden and I are the two attorneys in the Westlake Village chapter. And I think, I don't want to say this is unique to women, but I think that women, certainly once we start to mature, start to realize the appreciation of collaboration and taking competition out of the equation. And that's certainly been true for Nicole and I. There's only collaboration. We call or email each other when we have questions and need help with an issue. Our practices are, relatively different, but even when there is overlap, we're there to lean on each other and help each other out. And we're there as referral sources for each other, absolutely. And Tina was really right when she talked about how, and it was such a pleasure to meet with her yesterday, and she's the one who reached out to me. Thank you, Tina. And that's a great example, because Tina and I, our practices are so similar, but she wanted to get together and so did I. And we got to know each other a little bit, and I'm very confident that we'll end up referring to each other. It's really about knowing people, whether they have a different practice from you or the same, or overlap, knowing that they're there for you in whatever way they can be, whether it's helping with an issue or referring a client. In the practice of law, it often comes up that we have to refer because of a conflict. And so it's important to know somebody who does what you do and that you trust, and know if you refer a client there, they're going to be in great hands. So I'm thrilled that Nicole is in my chapter, and I would welcome another attorney as well. So Nicole, I know you'll agree with everything I said. And you've had some success with B2B connections, especially in our chapter. What's your perspective?
Yeah, well, thank you, Jocelyn. I think that there is something so powerful in women coming together and working together to make money. I like to view it not as networking, but as long-term relationship building, because that's really what it is. And I think it's natural for these relationships to turn into friendships. I view all of the members of our chapter in Westlake as friends, and that's been a really fun process coming in and getting to know everyone and develop those relationships, because it builds confidence, I think, first and foremost, in terms of being able to practice your pitch and also learn from other industries and other practice areas and other industries, in terms of how to fine tune your marketing and your advertising, and also to have their support if a question comes up, or you have a difficult client, or you want to try something new and you want to bounce ideas off of somebody. It's been a really great sort of little mastermind in and of itself, with the benefit of having referrals and being able to support other people and making referrals for other people to grow their businesses. So it's definitely a great way to build strong relationships and have those friendships basically turn into networking.
Wonderful. Our third topic is all about building your client list. A good portion of our audience are fellow attorneys inside the W Source, or members who work closely with attorneys. We'd love to hear from our panelists. What actions have you taken to find new clients? Or how have you grown your practice over the years? What's necessary for client acquisition and retention? Let's go back to Nicole for the first one. Nicole, where do you practice and how do you find your clients?
As a family law attorney, I am basically limited to helping families going through divorce in California, because it is a state-specific practice area. Every state has their own kind of dissolution laws. We are a community property state, and not every state in the United States is. But my practice has grown through referrals. It is 100% referral based, and that can be referrals from past clients, but also referrals from other attorneys, which is a huge part of other practice areas, and I likewise refer to them, and also from therapists and financial professionals. So the W Source has been a great way to, not only within my chapter, but other chapters, grow that referral base, because being very steadfast in the fact that I handle matters outside of court, and I have a very specific approach as to the cases that I handle, that kind of comes top of mind when people think divorce and they hear somebody that's wanting to handle things, maybe not in a litigious manner. And likewise, when there's family law attorneys, perhaps in other chapters, that handle the litigation aspect of it, it's a great referral source for me when I have a client or a potential client come in, and things are either starting to get litigious, or out the gate it's going to be too litigious for something that I want to take on, then I'm able to provide that referral. So Allison, I know that you have a fun story about obtaining a new client, so you want to share with us?
So the good thing also with estate planning is I meet clients anywhere, and kind of almost anybody could be a client. So my favorite story, my daughter is a competitive dancer. I don't know that she's good, but it's her talent. I mean, it's her activity. She loves to dance. I did not grow up dancing. I'm a lawyer. That was not my skill set. So I go sometimes to dance a little bit nervous about who I'm going to have to hang out with and talk to. So I meet this mom. She's very nice. She's definitely a dance mom. We're talking, it's fine. And she's like, you should meet my husband. I'm like, yes. Okay, I get that a lot, but I'm sort of nervous about it. I'm like, okay, well, we'll see. And she's pushing me to meet her husband. So I finally agree. He's an accountant with his own business, an accountant with a personality. And I was like, oh my gosh, we instantly hit it off. We know tons of people in common. Where he used to work is where some of my friends used to work at this company that exploded. And so we have all these common stories and a very similar professional timeline. So I started talking to him more professionally. He sent me some clients. I sent him some clients. I actually had him review our taxes. So now we're working with him. I introduced him to some people in my financial group at the W Source, and now a bunch of them use him both personally and professionally, and he's sending them back referrals. So it was just like wonderful kismet that happened at a dance studio. So Tina, I know I share kind of a random place where I meet people, but I know your clients, and you've shared, come from attorneys and CPAs. How do you try to connect with them, and how are you able to make that happen?
Well, I mean, it's been a long process of learning actually effective ways of networking, right? I mean, the W Source is a fantastic way to network. I'm also involved in other groups, and speaking is a great way. People have to know what you do. So there always has to be some type of a personal connection. So I try to keep in touch on a regular basis with the various CPAs that I know, the clients. I now have a long list of clients, many of whom have been with me for over 20 years. And those clients often refer other clients. And so once you establish a trusting relationship with someone, and like everyone else mentioned in the prior question, the fact that we develop friendships, what happens is you develop these close bonds with clients, with CPAs, with other professionals that can be a great source of business for you. And because you develop this personal relationship, they really get to know, exactly what it is that you do. So again, it goes back to communication, which is what we talked about at first. You really have to communicate with other professionals what you specifically do, because sometimes they can know you for years and never refer anything to you because they really don't get what it is you do. So you have to find that time when you're with these people in your circle of influence to educate them about who you are, about what's your background, about the depth of your practice, the depth of your background, because the more they know about you, the more they're going to trust you. And then that leads to the referrals. But they have to trust you first. They have to know you first. Otherwise, it won't come. So that has been what I have really worked on over these years, is really developing strong connections through contact, through having lunch, through having a coffee, through following up, through sometimes, going on a hike together, going to a ball game together, sharing time so that we can get to know each other and trust each other. That has been key for me. So Eleanor, can you share with us some things to keep in mind about a referral relationship with attorneys?
Certainly. Yeah, I just wanted to start by saying I get my referrals from many places. Like the rest of you have said, that the referrals from people who know you, whether it's a happy former client or whether it's another professional that you have a connection with, those are the best referrals. I also, because I serve the many LGBTQ clients, I advertise within LGBTQ organizations locally, and that's also a source of referrals for me. But I did want to explain an important ethical issue that attorneys have, and I know the rules in Washington, and I'm assuming that they're similar in other states, but non-attorneys don't always understand that we cannot have a financial arrangement with a non-attorney to provide us with referrals and receive some kind of compensation or cut. That is so that we can have referrals, but there can't be a sort of quid pro quo arrangement where the referral source gets paid something for that referral. And that gets into kind of a gray area with some networking groups. If there is a very strict expectation that you will provide X number of referrals to receive X number of referrals, because then that referral can be something of value that you are receiving or giving to a non-attorney for that referral. And so one of the things I really appreciate about WSource is that it really is built more on collaboration. So it's not like I have to come with three referrals and to receive my referrals. It's like I have a problem and I need help solving it. And how am I going to do that? I can think of, just as a few examples, in a probate, a woman's father died and she needed insurance on the house while it was in probate. And we have an insurance agent in our group, and she was able to write up the policy that was needed, and that was fantastic. Or I had a situation with a probate where there were siblings who didn't want to have to sell the family house. One of the siblings wanted to keep it, but everyone wanted something out of it. So We had a mortgage lender in our group who was able to come up with a mortgage loan that enabled the siblings to work that out. And that was, I mean, I could not have done that without that professional assistance. And so it's helping each other solve problems rather than, you know, I need to get a name or a contact. And so that's really what I like about WSource. And I think it fits with how women tend to work together. And I think that's one of the special things about WSource. So Amy, what helps you stay front of mind with other referral partners? And how could someone best cultivate a relationship with someone like yourself?
Well, thanks, Eleanor. So full transparency here. I've been really good at this, and then I've been really bad at this during my time as a business owner who owns a law firm. You know, when I came out of law school, and then several years later, I decided to open my own law firm, I didn't realize I was a business owner. For the first few years, I was an attorney. And then I realized, oh, wait, this is actually a business and I need to treat it like a business. And so I learned how to market, and I really just kind of went on this self-discovery of how do I do this marketing? And as part of marketing, you get referrals. And so, you know, marketing means, yeah, there's ads out there, and then there's speaking events, and there's these things, but the actual relational, you know, marketing, which is like the B2B marketing that we need to have as part of an important part of keeping our practice healthy, and then also keeping our practices thriving and growing, is how do I stay in touch with these individuals? And so over the years, I've just created certain types of systems within the law firm that do that. And so we have touches, we have like X number of touches per year on sort of the entire pool of people who have fallen into our referral lists. And so, you know, we do e-newsletters, right? And so that goes out to everyone. And then depending on how close of a relationship I have with them, they may get more touches. They may get birthday cards, which we have in a system that my team helps me work on. They may get, you know, appreciation gifts throughout the year, just saying, thank you for being, you know, in a relationship with us. We really appreciate it. And then, you know, they may also have sort of routine, let's grab a coffee, or, you know, we've done COVID coffees over Zoom. And so, you know, sometimes it's just a quick email to them, like, I haven't reached out to you in a while, I hope you're doing well. And so it's really just kind of about consistency, about staying top of mind. I mean, I think it's a cliched term, but it's a real part of being a business owner. And we are all business owners, whether we're working for someone else or we have our own it is our own business. And so I think it's just kind of a, you know, a top of mind, how many touches. There's a lot of really great resources out there that actually have these built-in templates you can sort of plug into your businesses, that you don't have to recreate the wheel. But there are, you know, that really is truly for us how we've been able to sort of thrive during really tough times where, you know, we're really having to put all of our mental and emotional energy somewhere else and not in that. These systems are still going just on a consistent basis without us having to push the button, so to speak. And so I think that's kind of the thing that we've relied on to keep those relationships thriving. And so, you know, and thriving and successful. So Jocelyn, how have you been able to keep, you know, your referral relationships successful?
So I don't want to repeat everything that Tina said, but she was so right on. I think that the two things that really stand out to me as promoting business and bringing business to me is relationship building and educating my fellow professionals about what it is that I do. And WSource is so great with both of those things. Nicole touched on it earlier. Our group has really become a group of friends, and we really we've come to trust each other and respect each other just like you would in a friendship. And so from the relationship building perspective, it's just been fantastic that way. And probably I want to say every member, but almost every member in our chapter has actually come to me for personal help, with their legal needs. And there's no bigger compliment to me than that. And then from an educational perspective, our group has a member presentation each time we get together. One of our members talks about whatever it is they would like to talk about, and it tends to be a topic that they're familiar with in their business, some aspect of their business, some specialty that they do. And that has really enabled all of us to learn so much more about our individual professions and specialties. And so we're continuing to do that. I'm going to be presenting next month, and I really enjoy being able to educate my fellow chapter members about my practice and what I do. It always ends up bringing business to me. That's it.
Okay, great job. Wonderful. All right, you guys ready for some impromptu questions? Our first question from the audience is for Amy. You mentioned the chutes and ladders, and it's a great analogy from the first question. I think that's a great analogy for my clients and my business. It's rarely ever in a straight line, right? Clients don't go through a process in a straight line. How do you keep clients moving forward if they get stuck inside of the estate planning process? How is that different than other types of attorneys?
So that's a great question. And I think it's always a constant opportunity, and perhaps phrased differently. Some people can see it as a challenge. We see it as an opportunity in our team. How do we keep them moving through the board? Well, usually if they're stuck somewhere, it's because they're, at least into the estate planning realm, they have to make a really hard decision, like the really uncomfortable, hard decision. And so a lot of times we have several touches that our team members will have, and we sort of escalate the touches. This individual on my team who is responsible for that part of the board, because all of the spaces on my chutes and ladders board, someone is responsible for getting them to the next space, right? So it's about expectations of who's going to do what when. And so if that person isn't able to move them off of the space, then they might engage the next person to try to help them. And sometimes just changing the narrative and who it's coming from might help my client. Eventually it does escalate to me. So sometimes it's me that does need to sometimes it's just including me in the email. Sometimes that will move them off the space to get them moving forward. And sometimes it really does take a quick phone call with me to move them through that really difficult space. I mean, we're all attorneys. We're really working with clients at some of their most vulnerable times. And so it's just never, some easy decisions that need to get made, regardless of what practice area. I always tell folks, I'm working with clients who are having to think through some of the things we never want to talk about, which is death, incapacity, and money in our family, and all the things that maybe we're not super comfortable with about our family. And so it's like this perfect storm of really, they're going to get uncomfortable. And so sometimes it's just, hey, let's talk this through. And so that's, I think, the best way. We just have like a system of escalating it. And sometimes it does just take a quick phone call with me. We have a link, and we call it sort of like the 20-minute link for Amy to get involved. And that's the link to the phone call for me. And it's like, just jump on my calendar. Let's talk about it. Let's get it through. And I've never not been able to move someone forward. I've never had somebody leave the entire process because they couldn't. It's just really kind of finding the right way to move them through that difficult spot.
It's an interesting board game image you painted for us. I love it. Thank you. Our next question for the audience is for Tina. You mentioned that there are some transactions you may not handle. My clients, or the person who's asking this question, seems to all be considering something: selling a piece of property, business restructuring. What are some of the transactions you are helping clients with right now? What's most frequent?
Well, it's interesting because there's an attorney that refers a lot of business to me, and she is an immigration attorney, but with a specialty, a niche practice where she obtains E2 visas for people who want to open a business here. So they don't get permanent residency, but they can live here so long as they have an existing business here. And so I have several situations where I'm just setting up their business because they come here, they don't have the visa yet. So I do everything from soup to nuts, right? So incorporate their business. What type of entity do they need? And then getting sometimes another advisor, because oftentimes these are people that don't live here yet. So they need a CPA on board that can be on there once they open their business. I'm also working with another long-standing client who's a cosmetics manufacturer. He came to me many, many, many years ago when they were much smaller than they are now. And he's expanding, and we're in a transaction right now where he might be buying another cosmetics company that manufactures different types of products than what he does. So I get involved with the brokers. In this case, there's a transaction where they're purchasing not only the cosmetics company, but also the real property where this cosmetics company is located. They own these buildings. So the brokers, handle a lot of the transaction with respect to the building, the two buildings, but I still get involved in the due diligence phase, looking at the preliminary title report, seeing if there's any red flags there. And since the brokers, focus more on the real property, then I'll become involved with preparing the documentation for the purchase of the cosmetics company, making sure that all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted. They have a name. If that name is trademarked, making sure that the trademark is assigned, making sure that all the corporate resolutions authorizing the purchase are completed, all that sort of stuff. So these are some of the interesting things I'm working on right now. I also still handle some litigated matters, business breach of contract matters. So that it runs the gamut.
Very interesting. I'm trying to rack my brain if I know the cosmetic company, since you're not that far away, but I'll pretend not that I didn't figure it out in the last few seconds.
In my client's case, Hannah, he's a chemist, so he actually makes the formulas for other cosmetics companies. So he's not the sort of brand that you would know. He actually makes the makeup for the brands that you would know.
Fascinating. Every so many areas. All right, Eleanor, this audience member prefers to stay confidential both on where they are and where they're and their name, because they've had a struggle finding an elder law attorney, estate planning attorney with a good response time lately. They mentioned that the COVID has made all of us face our mortality a little more closely. Are you taking new clients, and how do you manage the new clients' expectations on perhaps your new influx of people wanting to update their plans or talk about aging issues?
Well, I personally am taking new clients. I'm finding that I'm not needing to do a lot of advertising right now. It seems like the flow of word of mouth and that kind of referral network is bringing me the clients that I need. I'm not in a position where if I'm turning someone away, it's not because of being maxed out in my practice. It's more evaluating which kinds of cases I'm best at, which kinds of cases I want to take. And so, if it's something that's not in my scope or not something I want to take on, I certainly talk to a potential client about that, maybe help them find another referral. But, I'm taking new estate planning clients. I'm taking new probate clients. But as an example of evaluating sort of what work I want to be doing, I'm not representing guardians and new guardianship clients. We've had a big change in the law, and so I made a decision that learning the new law was something that I would leave to others. So, that's the kind of screening I do, and that I would talk up front with a potential client about.
Great, thank you. We hear that a lot too. So how do you balance that? It's helpful to hear. Another question is for Nicole. This audience member is asking that you mentioned a couple of out-of-court resolutions, and I think they want you to expand a little bit, saying, what are the common resolutions available to members that aren't talked about? I'm hearing an uptick of divorce. Can you expand a bit? I've heard a few choices, but I'm curious on what you were referring to.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that came along with COVID was actually an increase in divorce rates. And it ebbs and flows, and you can interestingly watch, as the economy changes, divorce rates will fluctuate. But it is common for when big, huge world events happen, there is an increase in filings. And I think that the most common view people have of divorce really is that judge in the black robe sitting on the bench, calling the balls and strikes and kind of telling you what the outcome is going to be, and you live with it and hope that your attorney made a persuasive argument so that things go your way. What's I'm finding being talked about more frequently, but still very underutilized, is mediation, which really is both parties decide to retain a neutral facilitator who is not acting as a representative for either party. They're really just sitting there encouraging communication and open discussion and educating about the law and how it could apply to their specific case. And then the parties are in the driver's seat in determining what outcome they want. And they typically have consulting attorneys. I always recommend when I'm acting as mediator that the parties have consulting attorneys, because I can't give specific advice to the parties. They can ask those specific questions and see how things will play out in their specific case to that consulting attorney that's representing them in that limited scope type capacity. And it tends to be a more affordable option for families because a lot of the times parties are kind of on par with how they want most things to go, and there tends to be maybe like one or two issues. Maybe it's exactly what the custodial percentage is, or what income's used in support calculations to determine what support looks like long term. And obviously there are some cases that are just not a good fit, but that's where me as a mediator, having a very detailed intake process and walking through the parties what mediation looks like and being able to screen them out if that's necessary and refer them on is part of the process. So mediation, I think, is a wonderful option for families. And if they, feel more comfortable and confident having an attorney in their corner, there still is collaborative law or cooperative law. Collaborative law, we like to call it the big C, really is a team of professionals. So each party has an attorney that is representing them in the collaborative process. And you can bring in other professionals to help you along the way. So be that a financial professional, especially if there's a business involved and you need to determine what the business income looks like and who may be awarded the business, or if it's going to continue functioning as a family business. If there's children involved and we need some input, especially if there's like a child with special needs and we need to figure out what type of custodial arrangement would be best for them. And everybody signs an actual stipulation that indicates that they're committed to the collaborative process. And if for some reason collaborative doesn't work, the parties then have to go retain new attorneys. So it's called an exclusionary provision, and there's a big commitment really to the process and to reach settlements. That commitment does scare some people. So then you can also opt for cooperative, which we call little c, which really is it's lawyer to lawyer negotiations. You're committed to trying to resolve things out of court. You still have attorneys, you can still bring in professionals. But if something goes wrong and you have to file a motion or get the judge's input on something, you're able to do that. So it's three very different processes, and it really does come down to the family and speaking with a family law attorney who's comfortable kind of talking about the different options and what fits their best factual scenarios.
Great, thank you. Our next question is for Jocelyn. A lot of small business laws have changed recently, especially for my business. This is from our audience, especially post-pandemic. What's one thing we need to keep in mind right now? What should I be focusing on?
Well, depending upon the type of business, laws can change so often. It's important for business owners to have a legal advisor to sort of touch in and touch base and make sure they're staying up to date. The best example of constantly changing laws and requirements is employment law and labor codes. Whether it's judicial decisions that are changing the landscape, or just the legislature coming up with new ways to sort of limit a business owner's way to operate and function. It's very difficult for the business owner themselves to keep up on all of that. So I would say, make sure that you've got, your financial advisors and your legal advisors, that you're just having a constant conversation about what's new, what's changed, what do I need to change? Do I need to update my employment policy handbook? Do I need to have, a perfect example of a sort of recent upheaval is the classification between independent contractors and employees. And I still, even though this has been going on for the past few years, a week doesn't go by that I don't have a conversation with a client who really doesn't understand that they may be thinking that they're in properly classified relationships with independent contractors, but they're not, and they're really at risk. So just having that dialogue with your professional advisors is really important.
Great, thank you. I think we have time for one more question, and we'll give this one to Allison so everyone gets a chance. Allison, this audience member is super shy and struggles with switching the hat from mom to boss babe like you. Do you mind sharing with us your quote unquote elevator pitch you shared with that dance mom, and what gave you the confidence to make that pitch?
I always try to be really sincere, right? We all do multiple things, right? That's going to change throughout life. Once my kids leave, I'll still be a mom, but maybe I'll say, really, I spend more time with my husband and I work. So I always am just honest with people. When they ask me what I do, I say I run my own estate planning practice. It is assertive, it is confident, it is simple, but it kind of means I set my own boundaries and my own schedule. I've been down the road. I've worked for a big firm. I've been, abused in so many different ways by other lawyers, but I paid my dues, I did the training, and now I'm really serious about what I do. But because I try to be present in my kid's life, it's not everything, right? So my husband and I, at the beginning of every calendar year, we really set our schedule. Who's on first? Where are we getting, help from drivers and other people so that we try to have more balance, right? So I do dance pickup 3 days a week, but I only do school pickup 2 days a week. So some people know me as a mom, and when they learn that I work, because I dress differently than other moms, I always get that question, what do? You always look nice. I can say that I have a job, and that really actually does often lead to, oh, my husband and I should meet with you. So it's pretty easy introduction. You just have to be willing to say, this is what I do, and not be embarrassed if you're talking to someone who doesn't work, or embarrassed if you talk to someone who, works 24 hours a day with a big company. We're all equals, just in different ways.
That's a perfect ending. That's all the time we have for today. We will include everyone's contact information on the screen in just a minute. Thank you to our wonderful panelists. They have spent the last couple of weeks carefully curating this beautiful content. They're available for any questions or collaborations. I personally know all of the members on this panel and have asked them questions or met with them in person. So I think if you have further follow-up, they'd love to talk with you. From all of us at the W Source, thank you so much for attending today's session, or if you're listening to the recording, welcome. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.